Hello and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Bajo.
I'm Junglist.
Another packed show this week with two big games featuring cybernetically enhanced humans. Chris Taylor's Space Siege and Silicon Knights 2 Human.
We'll follow the winners of the Good Game mentorships as they move to Melbourne and start work on Office Wars.
And if you know your gaming facts, you'll know that 2 Human was actually in development for almost 10 years. So in this week's Backwards Compatible, we look at other games long time in the making.
But first, can you guess the name of this game? Answer at the end of the show.
Race you to the news. Go!
Publishing giant Electronic Arts have further bolstered their lineup of games by securing new deals with 2 of the world's prominent development studios. The 2 studios are Grasshopper Manufacture, the Japanese team responsible for games like Killer 7 and more recently No More Heroes on the Wii, as well as Epic Games, the studio behind games like Gears of War 2. Both studios have agreed to develop 1 new game each to be published by EA, and both will apparently be based on entirely new IP. The deals with Epic and Grasshopper come just a few months after Electronic Arts bought out 2 other game developers, BioWare and Pandemic, the developers behind Mass Effect and Mercenaries 2, respectively. According to Australia's Office of Film and Literature Classification, one of Nintendo's best-kept secrets may finally be ready to play. Disaster Day of Crisis was one of the first games to be announced for the Wii way back in 2006, but nothing has been seen or heard about the game since then. The OFLC are reporting that not only have they played the game, but they've even classified it for release, giving it an M rating. Good Game contacted Nintendo Australia and they confirmed that the game had indeed been submitted and rated by the OFLC, but that no further information was available.
Gas-powered games are back to doing what they do best, making big robots blow up. Space Siege is the successor to Dungeon Siege, and the latest click 'em up to hit the PC.
Fast forward to the future, and the humans have tried to colonize a planet sacred to the alien Karak. And when Karak get angry, they commit genocide. Our story begins with the humans currently getting their ass kicked, largely thanks to their strategy of building blockades out of exploding barrels.
Not surprisingly, it's up to you to wipe out an alien force on a colony ship that's humanity's last hope. There's all your standard weapons, plus some alien ones, and you can even build a friendly robot to help. You'll also come across cybernetic implants, which you can install at the cost of your own humanity, or keep it natural.
Completing objectives gives you upgrade points, and down at the bottom of the tech tree there are 2 powerful abilities that require you to be human. But the cybernetic abilities and stats far outweigh them, and there's no real penalty for going all robot.
So really, this is a moral dilemma.
Yeah, and other than that, it's pretty much Dungeon Siege in space. Left-click where you want to go, right-click what you want to die. Number keys trigger abilities, most of which increase damage per second.
You're given lots of abilities, so there's lots of room for experimentation to suit your playstyle. You could bait a swarm into your trap of mines, or throw 1 vortex grenade and 5 real grenades to take out a mob, or you can just run in and take damage while spamming the health pack.
Yeah, which I find ridiculous, by the way. Oh, please, Mr. Enemy, wait for 1 second while I drink my magic potion.
But it's not a potion, it's a med kit.
It doesn't matter whether you explain it away with science or magic, it's the same thing. It's like Lord of the Rings and Star Trek, it's the same thing. The Vulcans are elves, the Klingons are dwarves.
But the health potion is an RPG staple.
All I'm saying is, and you said it yourself, you don't even need to use the abilities to win. The aliens just run at you blindly and require no strategy at all. The cyborgs occasionally fire a slow-moving missile that you'll have to dodge. And the trickiest thing I encountered all game was some mines hidden under some crates. I didn't even die until the final boss. I'm not saying that to brag.
I see what you're doing there, trying to slip that one in.
No, it wasn't subtle at all. All I'm saying is, what's the point for a game with no difficulty settings? What's the point in having all these tactics in a game that doesn't require any micro or dexterity until the very end?
Well, now this is the crux of it, isn't it? You're forced to make a choice, so you went cyborg, so of course you found it easier.
Yeah, I can't see why you wouldn't. I mean, these types of games don't depend on innovative gameplay mechanics to succeed. They depend on cool-looking enemies, characters, weapons, and scenery. But in Space Siege, all the levels look the same, the enemies aren't varied enough, and your character and weapons look boring unless you go the cyborg path.
And this is the main problem of Space Siege, is that it rewards you for walking down easy street. Instead of having a choice of going human or going cyborg, your choice really is about cool cyborg weapons or standard issue assault rifle, or cool cyborg red eye thingy or standard issue marine face.
And in a 15-hour game, bragging rights is not enough incentive to accept a more boring game experience.
But as most Dungeon Siege fans will tell you, the fun is in the online. There's a separate campaign where you can click it up with 3 friends and adjust the difficulty and toughness, but there's no MMO-like qualities here, such as leveling up or classes.
And to be fair, a lot of games use this, multiple abilities to suit your playstyle thing, and most of the time it's a gimmick, but Space Siege does capture that.
So what is it that Space Siege is missing that successful games like Diablo 2 and Titan Quest have?
Well, aside from Diablo 2 being one big pokey machine, it had some decent art and story direction. Space Siege is lacking that. It has some good physics, but the only time we see that represented is in exploding barrels.
Occasionally you will come across a big rhino alien or a big robot boss or a lithe assassin and you think things are starting to pick up, but they don't. The last boss proved a challenge and had some tricks up his sleeve, but it should have been like that the whole way through. I'm giving it 6 out of 10 robotic chickens.
It runs on older PCs, and it's certainly not lacking in playtime. There's more than one ending according to your decisions, but I think above all it demonstrates that a moral dilemma needs to be reflected in the game's mechanics for the player to care, not just the story. I'm giving it 5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game!
Now, there's only one thing better than a pirate.
A ninja.
Let's not get into that again, John.
Zombies!
So why a zombie game? Why now?
Because we haven't really had a good zombie apocalypse game. We always have the evil something causing the zombies, and this is just the classic movie zombie apocalypse. We give you 4 movies, there's 4 different scenarios, 2 in the country, 2 are in the city, and we give you a different experience in each one. And it's just, I think everyone's thought about the zombie apocalypse a lot, and it's time to test your friends to see who you would want in the zombie apocalypse. The guy who leaves you behind or the guy who helps you out.
There seems to be a lot of post-apocalyptic kind of games happening in the last kind of 6 months and in the next year. Do you think there's any world events that are triggering this?
I think it always has been, right? HL2 officially was post-apocalyptic. It's a way to clean the slate, I think, and kind of give you the familiar, but turn it a little.
There seems to be a lot of post-apocalyptic games at the moment, Why do you think this is?
People, I don't know. I think people are, gamers like to see when the something hits the fan, and they like to see if they can try to prevent it, and that's what happens. And you see that in Resistance 2, the Chimera have kind of come in and just have devastated this country, kind of testing the borders and kind of pushing people inward. And people like to see if they can help turn the tide, and that's just something that's common, I think, across why we play video games, because you're not going to be fighting monsters. You're probably not going to have that many chances to by one person saving the entire world.
Now we're seeing just an influx of post-apocalyptic, gritty kind of games. Do you think you've had an impact on the gaming community in this way?
I mean, if the gaming community, as far as the developers, are making games with a little less saturation that have a lot of rubble and the environments are blown to hell, I'm okay with that. I think the reason we chose that kind of pseudo-European look that's blown apart is because it just simply looks good with the latest generation of technology. And Gears 1 was a very desaturated game. A lot of people remember it as being very gray. We've actually allowed a little bit more color to bleed through in Gears 2. So, I mean, it's not like suddenly turning into a disco, but there's just a little bit more color in certain scenes that helps make the scenes pop that much more.
Yeah, this is the actual apocalypse. So you start the game during the end of the world. So demons and angels are raining on the earth. There's fire and brimstone. People are running for their lives. So it's the actual apocalypse. It's funny. I mean, when we went to make the game, we actually just wanted to make a game about one of the horsemen of the apocalypse. So it wasn't like we set out to make a game about the apocalypse. It's just we liked the idea of the 4 horsemen. We thought they'd make cool video game characters. So we just picked one and said, all right, let's make a game about him.
There are a few games which are exploring kind of this horror in space kind of thing happening at the moment. What separates you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were excited to do a version of this traditional, people are very fond of survival horror genre. We wanted to do our turn at it and do a great, exciting, fun version of it. We've made ourselves unique with some of the mechanics we have in the game. So we're sci-fi and we're in space. With that comes a lot of really great mechanics like zero-G. So the ship can turn gravity off at any time. The ship can depressurize. You can be in airless at any time. We've got the whole strategic dismemberment feature that we were talking about earlier. You've got a couple of cool devices on your hands. You've got a stasis device, which is the ability to shoot a projectile out that stops time in a bubble wherever it detonates for a few seconds. So with all those mechanics, there's a lot of tactical choices that you don't normally have in the other games, and so we're excited to differentiate that way.
Zombies are very popular. I don't know what it is. Everybody loves the zombies. You know, the interesting thing for us is that Resident Evil 5 doesn't have any zombies. These aren't kind of like the foot-shuffling, Walking Dead corpses. These are people who are being mutated by some sort of horrible virus.
Considering AAA titles take about 3 years to make, and devs like to keep their secrets pretty close to their chest, we're kind of wondering just what happened 3 years ago to make all these devs set their game in a post-apocalyptic zombie nightmare full of zombies.
Or aliens.
Or alien zombies.
Or alien zombie robot. What are you doing?
Can't get into the thing. I think I'm going to need a Lancer just to get the case open. He's given me a severe case of pack rage.
Take a page out of Gordon Freeman's book.
Ooh. Rise and shine, Mr. Phoenix.
Now time for Fatal Rage of Conflict.
Round 1, fight.
Each fight stokes the fire in my soul. All aboard the pain train. Choo choo.
Firestorm of the Flaming Wind Prawn.
Dude, what the hell was that? What do you mean? That's one of my special attacks. I know, but how come you get an attack like that? Hey, don't cry. Don't you have a special attack too? Yeah, but not like that one. That's not fair. Why? What's your attack? Well, all I got is the Tiger Fist. Oh yeah? Let's see.
Tiger Fist.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure if it was done right, then it'd be really powerful. Hey, don't be like that. Be like what? I'm just being enigmatic. This is not a time to bow to shame. My techniques may lack the finesse and style of Todd's, but a true martial artist relies not on panache, but on practical skill. I'll show Todd the true meaning of combat. Was that meant to be special? Sorta. I mean, being able to do any martial arts moves is pretty special, right? My master always taught me that the solid foundation of any
Anvil of the Heavens. Winner, Todd.
Good game.
I'm Zach Dove. I'm 21 years old. I've just moved down from Brisbane, originally from Tasmania. I'm here to work on the Good Game office was. I'm at uni in Queensland at the moment. I'm doing a degree in computer game design. I grew up on a dairy farm, and so I've worked there. Yeah, my mum's an artist, a traditional artist, pastel artist, and I guess her work and her side of things has inspired me to do the art side of game design. My dad's in IT, so I get my love of computers from him. Thank you. Thank you. I just enjoy creating things. I'm a very creative person, so to make a computer game an interactive experience is something that I've always wanted to do. My favourite computer game would probably be a toss-up between Half-Life 2 and Bioshock. They are both very, very deep in terms of storytelling, and the experience you have at the end of the game, I came off feeling very moved by them, and that's what I look for in a game, is to, like a good book or a good movie, to have some emotional reaction to it at the end.
Hi.
Hello.
You must be Zach.
Yes.
Oh, it's your first day, right?
Yep.
Yep, cool. I'll show you around the office. This is the kitchen, and that's the toilet through there. the engine room, where all the engine guys are in. This is the back room. You got some free drinks. And this is the production room, and that's Janine and Fork now.
Hello, Janine. Good, thank you.
This is upstairs. That's the other toilet. Lollies, music bars, mugs for the coffee machine that's in the kitchen. And this is everyone else, the designers, assistant producers, scripters. And that's your desk. And there's a notepad and design document.
Very cool.
Cool.
Zach, meet Tim. Tim's the other guy on the Good Game internship.
Zach.
Just going to go through the game at a pretty high level for you guys and run through what you're going to be doing. We're going to kick around some ideas with Steve about maybe the art style of the game. And we're going to kick around some ideas with Janine about how the hell we're actually going to get this whole thing done in like 3 months, which is a crazy time for doing a game, OK? Right off the bat, we got a problem. We probably don't have the staff we would like to put on right at hand, so we'll be bringing in outside help. Nintendo has pushed a whole bunch of deadlines at us, and that means all of our current games are in like full production, not crunch time, but everybody is 100% flat out on these games. Zach and Tim are going to get a bit of a trial by fire, working with some external staff and probably, you know, being in charge a little bit of what those contractors do. So it should be quite an eye-opener for them, I think. You guys just kind of instantly got a promotion because now you're two of the key guys on the game for us. Zach and Tim's input into the game will be pretty significant. Tim, I'll get you to kind of read through this about 2,000 times and start committing all the bits in here to memory.
Tim especially, because he's in production design, he will probably help Steve write a lot of the design document.
There'll be a lot of Tim in this game. Janine will show you kind of the way around an asset list and how we put an asset list together of everything that we're going to need in the game. Zach in particular will have a really important role, and that will be to work with one of our lead artists to set the style and tone for the game.
We'll get you onto that straight away today. First cab off the rank design-wise will be just to get some concept visuals. We'll get you working on those.
Yeah.
That'll be a lot of fun.
We've got no idea what it's going to look like. That's just going to happen over the next couple of weeks, and that bit of the project is always really exciting to see just how it takes shape. What we want to do with Office Wars is do a game that's casual, it's light and it's fun, and it's customisable, and people can take it into their offices and play it at work, rename all the people to be people in their offices, and then go around doing fun stuff like stabbing each other in the eye with letter openers, you know, that kind of cool thing. The key things we look for staff here is you have a real passion for making games. You've always got to enjoy making games more than you've got to enjoy playing them, that's right. And I kind of got that from what Janine said about both of these guys. They were just the right kind of guys for Infinite. I would love to offer them a job at the end of this if they work out. That would be, for us, that would be an absolute win if we got a couple of great new staff that have worked on a game with us already.
Most of my stuff's 3D.
What I suggest is that you go and have a look, just try to dig out some reference, and then we'll start drawing up some concept sketches. Cool. Cool? Yeah, cool. We'll leave you with that.
Thank you. My first impression of the job is it's very studious in there. It's all very quiet, just ticking away at keyboards, which is something I expected. The industry is very tight, but things like this really give the average Joe a chance to get in and show what they can do, and I'm very grateful for the chance I've been given. Come to Victoria, they said. See the world, they said. Big dirty river and it's cold.
Good game.
When you really want to play a new game, waiting for its release can be painful, and some games keep us waiting way longer than others. Take Too Human, for example. We may have just got our hands on this action RPG mishmash of Norse mythology and science fiction, but we've been waiting for almost a decade. Too Human was originally slated for a 1999 release on the PlayStation 1, and was planned to be an epic that spanned 4 discs and countless hours of game time. But then something happened. The game's creators, Silicon Knights, were signed on as an exclusive developer for Nintendo's GameCube. They ended up releasing a frightfully good survival horror game called Eternal Darkness instead, as well as a top-notch remake of Metal Gear Solid for Nintendo's little purple box. But they never did give up on making Too Human. In 2000, Silicon Knights once again revealed the game, now for the GameCube, and looking all the better for it. However, this would be the last we'd ever see of Too Human on a Nintendo console. In 2004, Silicon Knights would split from Nintendo to side with Microsoft and set about working on Too Human for another 4 years, finally releasing it in 2008 on Xbox 360.
Ragnarok.
If there has to be an award given for the longest period between starting development and a release date, though, this game would win it hands down. It's called Saboteur, and it was originally programmed in 1984 for the Atari 2600. Now, if you know your video game history, you'll know that 1984 was a bad year for the games business, and a worse year for Atari. It was the era of the great video game crash, and a cash-strapped Atari just wasn't willing to take a risk on this espionage-themed shooter. Despite being practically complete, the release of Saboteur was sabotaged, with Atari canceling it indefinitely. That is, until 20 years later. In 2004, when Atari released this, the Atari Flashback console, it came with a bonus. The console included a compilation of well-known retro classics like Yar's Revenge and Warlords, but there was one game on the list that hadn't been seen by anyone outside Atari since the mid-80s. Of course, it was Saboteur, and it finally had its first official release on an Atari console after an amazing 2-decade delay. Clocking in at about half that long was this late arrival. It's 3D Realms' Cherokee Indian meets malevolent alien race game, Prey, and it was first announced way back in 1995. Back then, the game didn't look like much, and after stumbling at a few development hurdles, 3D Realms ended up packing it in and starting all over again. Almost a decade later, and the game was finally released. And thankfully, it was fantastic. Mixing a compelling story and characters with some great graphics, cinematic atmosphere, and trigger-pumping action, Prey was worth the wait. Prey even managed to do Portals more than a year before Portal did Portals. Although admittedly Portals did do Portals better than Prey's Portals. Next up is the Ukrainian-made Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl. Making a high-profile game in the Ukraine is probably a hard task at the best of times, but when you're attempting to make one of the most ambitious first-person shooters/role-playing games of your generation, you're bound to hit a few snags along the way. Unfortunately for the game's developers, GSC Game World, Stalker hit about 6 years' worth of snags. The game was first announced in 2001, but experienced numerous delays, engine overhauls, and an unfortunate incident that leaked an early version of the game onto the internet. When it finally arrived in 2007, Stalker certainly looked its age, and it had to defend itself from younger, prettier competition like The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, which was released in the same month. Despite stiff competition, Stalker did pretty well for itself, with its unique post-apocalyptic atmosphere winning it plenty of admirers. And last but certainly not least is this. What list of delayed games would be complete without a mention of 3D Realms' Duke Nukem Forever? A game that's been so long in the making that it really does feel like we've been waiting for it for a long time. The sequel to the original rough and risque first-person shooter started development in 1997, and more than 10 years on it's still going, with no end in sight.
I'm looking for some alien toilet to park my bricks. Who's first?
All we know about the game so far is that it will indeed feature Duke, shooting off both his gun and his mouth in traditional Nukem style, and if the 3D Realms production art is anything to go by, then we're in for a game that doesn't take itself too seriously. That is, of course, if it ever gets finished.
Good game!
The moral dilemma of robots versus humans continues, Jung, in Too Human for Xbox 360. Now, we all know that Vikings are cool, but just how cool are cybernetic Vikings?
At least 87% as cool, Badge. Too Human blends Norse mythology with science-ology, recreating famous characters such as Odin, Loki, and Thor. You play as Baldur, son of Odin. Baldur is an Aesir of the Protectors of Humanity, charged with taking on the war machines that have destroyed the world through centuries of battle.
An epic story with interesting characters and cryptic dialogue has been built around this idea of future tech and lore, and in many ways it works. It is kind of a dark story and the characters are pretty unlikable, so you end up not really caring about them that much.
It does make for some interesting imagery, though, such as the Valkyrie that comes to revive you in battle.
She's pretty cool, Jung, but does she have to take so long to come and bring you back to life? In fact, besides gear damage, the only punishment you get for dying is having to sit through this 20-second resurrection as she comes down and hugs you back to full health.
All your standard RPG elements are here. Classes, tech trees, leveling up, and of course the endless quest for better gear and weapons. Like Space Siege, you have a choice to go through a cybernetic path or a human path. The cybernetic path has more to do with damage, whereas the human path is all about combos and customization. And like Space Siege, you went cyborg, didn't you, Badge?
What can I say? Robots are cool. But you don't really feel like a robot in this. More of a tough demigod, if anything. There's runes that you can use to customize your weapons, but I especially like the charms. They're kind of like a side quest combined with a bonus ability. Once you've completed the bonus ability's objectives, such as killing 200 enemies, it then becomes available. There's definitely some pockets of WoW influence as well, John.
I know what you mean, Badge. The gear hierarchy and color scheme is pretty much identical, although the interface to compare, trash, and change gear is actually one of the most uncluttered and easy to understand we've seen in a console RPG.
There's heaps of weapons and gear to choose from too, and they all look awesome. Different weapons are better for different enemies, such as hammers are better for trolls, but trying to work out which enemies are trolls can be a bit confusing at times. They all look a little bit like robot dogs and robot spiders.
You're not really eased into understanding which weapons are better for which enemies, and it can be pretty hard to work out on the fly. And your inept, whinging squad mates aren't much help either.
This isn't gonna be easy, is it?
And when you finally get rid of them and get Thor as a partner, he still has time to whinge before getting knocked out of action before any begins.
I won't die like this! Thor!
Unfortunately, the grinding seems to have taken influence from WoW as well. There's a lot of robots here, followed by elite robots, followed by bigger robots.
Just like Space Siege, there's not enough variety, so you just have to fight waves and waves of these guys, and you die way too much.
It actually lengthens the time that you spend in each dungeon, which can get up to 4 hours per level. And despite the detail of these futuristic battlegrounds, they're fairly uninteresting to spend that much time in.
I found the style of the combat really hard to get used to, John. The right stick controls your melee weapon, and the left controls where you actually move to, and the triggers control your projectile weapons. But the problem arises when you need to switch between the two, and I think newcomers are going to have a tough time getting used to this.
It's not the style of the combat, it's the execution. It takes a long time to get used to the fact that the second stick is not controlling the camera, and you spend a lot of time figuring out where the enemies are.
It becomes frustrating when you're trying to get breathing room from enemies as well, especially light polarity variant enemies or exploity guys. But at least you get a nice orchestral soundtrack to all this mayhem.
There is online co-op as well. We couldn't test it out with our review code, but co-op always helps.
I was really getting into this for the first 4 or 5 hours, John, but then I just got sick of misfiring all the time. I'm giving it 6.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
There's an interesting universe here with a lot of great cutscenes, but the controls, or should I say the lack of controls, bring it down. I'm giving it 6 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game!
So did you guess the game for this week?
It was, of course, the original Duke Nukem. This game was released in 1991 for PC in 3 parts, the first of which was shareware.
Duke may be famous for first-person shooters these days, but he got his start by jumping platform to platform as he tried to stop the evil Dr. Proton from ruling the world.
We didn't have to wait a decade for the sequel to this game either, Badge. 2 more 2D Nukem games were quickly released before Duke hit it big with Duke Nukem 3D in 1996.
Well, that's our show for tonight.
Don't forget you can stream or download this or any other episode of Good Game from our website.
We'll be back, same time, same network, same place next week. Until then, may all your gaming moments be happy ones. Bajo out.
Junglist out.
Marcus out. I'll go put him on the shelf.
Hello, I'm Marcus Phoenix. Oh, hey, I lost you. Blah, blah, blah. I'm the Halo Master Chief.
Turning out the lights.
Dead. Die. Who are you? Oh, hello, Mario. Have you met my friend Sonic? Oh, that's awkward.